We are here with my very dear friend, Swish Goswami out of Toronto, Canada, the CEO of Trufan, an awesome company that's helping. I actually know your elevator pitch from Stadia that's helping businesses to get better insights on what's happening with their influencer marketing. It's an awesome tool that we actually use. So check them out. You fellow brown person in the sports tech entrepreneurship world. Swish, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super amped.
I'm gonna start off by asking you, how'd you get the nickname Swish?
Good question. So my full name is ferocious, very long, kind of like 12, 13 characters. It's actually kind of awkward. I didn't count before I came on the show how many characters my full name is. But no, I played basketball in junior high, and I played basketball at the Calgary Science School. So you can imagine how competitive our basketball team really was. But I was the starting power forward at the time because I was the tallest kid in the class. Very quickly became the shortest kid in the class almost. But in grade 7, my coach, Mr. McWilliam, couldn't pronounce my full name and gave me the nickname Swish. So I took the first 2 letters, last 3 letters of my name, and mixed it together. And I started telling people in high school, university onwards, that just call me Swish.
Man, it's a good name being in the sports field. Now,
a lot of pressure though. Fuck.
I think about this a lot. You mentioned you were tall, young, and then you became short as you got relative to your peers as you got older.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about how that affected your personality?
No, not really. Like I started not really caring about competitive sports past grade 10. So past grade 10, I started debating a lot, and I joined the national team, and that became kind of like a full-time job, literally. Like every 2 weeks I was traveling somewhere. I was really behind school, so I couldn't focus on anything but debate and school. So for me, like sports became more of just like watching it as a fan and not really playing it. Whereas definitely like if I was the shortest kid in the class in like grade 7, 8, or 9, like that would have really hurt. I think I would have felt pretty sad about that because basketball was a big part of my life. Cricket was a big part of my life growing up. Dancing was a big part of my life. Like I was very like athletic growing up.
Did you do what was that, like Bollywood dance or?
I was enrolled in Bollywood dance for a year. My mom definitely made me take a class. It was so awkward though because I was the only kid. Like all the other people were like 30-year-old white moms, and it was me as like this 14-year-old brown kid. And then I decided to take a hip hop class and started continuing on with that. Yeah.
So how do you feel about breakdancing being in the Olympics now?
Oh, happy, very happy because I had a lot of friends who were breakdancers, but people always ask me like, "Oh, could you ever break dance?" And there's no way. Like you got to be on a different level to be able to do that.
Yeah, seriously.
I want to dig in. One of the more curious things about your story is that you're almost kind of like a mutt in terms of your experiences, right? You started off, I think you were born in Singapore.
Yep.
And I've gotten a chance to visit that country. It's one of the most amazing countries on earth. But tell us how you went first from a kid in Singapore, your experience there, and then how you moved to a completely different country. You know, as a kid, that's challenging, right? Because you probably established a lot of friendships, a lot of connectivity. Tell us about that, and then you end up in Calgary, which is completely different than Singapore.
Oh, dude, yeah. You went from like one of the nicest, most tropical, cleanest places in the world to literally like the ice planet Hoth in Star Wars. Like just very cold and desolate. Like people don't even really know Calgary too well, even if you're American. But I enjoyed Singapore. Like I really enjoyed Singapore. I had a very beautiful childhood there from like 0, I guess, to 9 years old really. And for me, like growing up in Singapore, having friends, I think Singapore is actually one of the first countries that I felt was incredibly diverse. Like people speak to like the multiculturalism in Canada, and definitely there's a lot of cultures in Canada, but it's such a big country. I would obviously expect that. For like a very small island country, Singapore is incredibly diverse. Like I grew up with brown friends, I had Chinese friends, I had people that were from Africa, like from Sudan, that were in my class. And obviously, I don't keep in touch really with most of my friends that I made in preschool and primary 1 and primary 2, which is grade 1 and 2 in Singapore. But it was still cool, at least, to be able to have a childhood there, and then to go from there to Calgary definitely was a big leap. And I think it was also a leap from an education point of view, because you learn at such a quick rate in Singapore and generally in Asia, I think, even in India and the Philippines and China, that when I came into grade 3, like my brother could have gotten promoted 3 levels. I could have been promoted 1 level. But we decided to stay in our grades, and it was just probably the easiest time in school I've ever had. Like there was no competitive, like, feeling. There was like kind of just get pretty good grades and be able to focus on things outside of school, which is where the passion for cricket and dance and all of that started to pop up early on.
What about business? When did that start for you?
Not until very later. Like I had stints of entrepreneurship, I guess, if you will. Like my dad was an engineer by trades, and that's why we moved to Calgary, because he was working at an oil and gas company called SNC Lavalin, and he wanted to kind of teach me a bit about engineering. So we built something together, which I sold. It was a hovercraft, a remote controlled rechargeable hovercraft, when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And it was great, like it was a great experience. Sat down with him, had to like across 5 months, go from like drawing designs all the way to building the actual thing. I personally don't even think I contributed like 50%. Like it was way less than that. Like he did most of the work, but I was there, and it was really cool to be able to build something from scratch and then sell it. But the word entrepreneur never actually came into my vocabulary, I think, until like the age 15, maybe, or 16. Like it was later on in life when I actually realized, holy shit, like you don't have to be rich to be able to be a businessman and start a business and make that your full-time career right out of school.
Was there culture shock for you going from, a place that you saw a lot of people that look like you in other shades similar to yours, to coming to a place like Calgary, which isn't nearly as diverse?
You'd be surprised, man. Like there's an entire quadrant in Calgary called the Northeast, which is just like, Pakistanis, Indians, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankans.
We're everywhere.
Exactly, right? Like it's like the ethnic enclave in Calgary, basically. But it wasn't a big kind of shock. I think the bigger shock was just the weather. Like the weather was so fucking cold that like the first time we moved from Singapore to Calgary, we hated it that we moved back to Singapore. And then we had to eventually move because they put mandatory military service in. And my brother, who's 4.5 years older, didn't foresee himself doing that. And, I'm too young to make a decision on that. At the time, I was really angry because I loved Singapore and, obviously had friends there and wanted to live there my whole life. But eventually I had to move. And major part of that was because of kind of national service popping up and being mandatory.
Wow.
Nice.
That's wild. Do you think you would have done it?
Now, no, but at the age I was in, if there was a button to be like stay or leave, I would have clicked stay. Like I just loved Singapore, and I still do. It's just, 2 years of your life, it's a lot, man. Like I don't know
at all?
kind of. So my dad now actually moved back, but I don't really talk too much to my dad anymore. So I used to go, like maybe the last time I went was like 4 years ago to visit him, and then I stopped talking to him really. So I don't really go back. But I would love to, because like I remember where I went to school. I remember the mall I used to go to every weekend. Cool. I remember, our 2 condominiums, one right in front of each other because we moved places. And I remember Hillview Green, that was one of them, and Hillbrooks was another one. And every condo had a fucking big ass swimming pool in the actual complex. Like it was insane. They lived lavishly.
Show, by the way, Singapore Social.
Oh no! I thought you were going to talk about the movie. Sorry, Crazy Rich Asians. I watched Crazy Rich Asians. I have not watched that show though yet.
That's a fun one. That's a really fun one to watch.
Right.
It's the thing that I love the most about the multiculturalism of Singapore is the fusion of the food.
Yeah,
I think the food there is some of the most incredible food that I've ever had. And whenever I find a restaurant with that cuisine, I'm always gonna, in any city, I always go and try to make sure I get a meal.
What's unique about it?
It's like hot. I genuinely think they were the ones that invented Hakka. And don't quote me on this, but I think it's this fusion of like Chinese and Indian food, and it's made in they use sauces from every culture, and it's fantastic.
It's amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I love those crossover types of cuisines. They're always so good.
Would you?
The best.
Is there any sort of? I know it's also a country with strict laws.
Now
that you've kind of come over and lived in Canada for a while, the fact that you guys kind of were Singapore nationals and didn't meet that requirement, what would kind of be the penalties, if any, you would face
no penalties. I mean, I can go back and visit. I just can't live there. And I guess, if I tried to live there, I'd be imprisoned. But or probably worse, deported. But at the same time, like, it was just so funny because then when I came from Singapore to Calgary, I had no clue what gum was. And I remember the first ever piece of gum I had was a yellow dried gum.
Yeah.
And I just remember like being like, holy shit, this is like the greatest thing ever. And I remember like stealing gum from people. It was actually a really bad problem I had. I stole pencils and I stole gums. And I used to sell the pencil that smelled really good, like when you rub it. Those are the two things I used to do.
There's the entrepreneurial.
Hustle,
but I didn't
that's the
resell. It wasn't like
hustler
I wasn't reselling it. I was eating it, like, or using the pencils. But yeah, that was different. And then obviously, like, they have, you bring like marijuana into Singapore, you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
Like, they literally have the death penalty for weed and for most drugs. So it's very different, very different, very different. Yeah, very different.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask in terms of you coming to North America, which Canada is also a very liberal place like the United States.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as kind of like the pros and cons of potentially like a very stringent system like Singapore versus a system like the United States or Canada, which isn't as strict, and there are far less restrictions on a lot of things?
I think there's three things to consider. I think one is, I think there are certain things that are strict about the US and Canada. It's just put under the blanket here. I don't think it's enforced, but I think there's like it's actually interesting. Like, racism in Singapore is very overt. And that's what my dad used to actually tell me too. In the workforce, it's very blatant. Whereas like in Canada, I feel like here, because we're so multicultural, we don't talk about racism. We pretend like it doesn't exist when it actually does. And I think actually that's a more dangerous world where like racism is subtle and it's not addressed because we have these things in our charter that we think just make it, irrelevant and not something worth talking about. I think the second thing, obviously, is just Singapore has a lot to do in terms of freedom of expression is important. I definitely had a lot of friends that debated in Singapore. It was funny because one of the times I went back to Singapore is when I debated in grade 12. I was part of Team Canada, and our world championship was in Singapore that year. And I got to go up against my home country in the grand final. And it was the topic on universal basic income. We were against it. They were for it. It was a biased topic, in my opinion. I think it's obviously we should support a universal basic income in an ideal world where like budget isn't a thing, which is what debate land is. But yeah, like we debated them, and it was so great to like hear these incredibly smart, articulate, open-minded Singaporeans. And then I realized that out of the entire Singaporean debating team I faced, all of them didn't stay in Singapore for college. They all left. They all went to Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard. They all left. And none of them have gone back. And I asked one of them, I'm like, interesting. Like, why did you decide to go to Harvard? Like, you have Yale and US in Singapore. You have some really good colleges. And why not just stay there? And they said, I can't study what I want to study in an open and kind of experimental way, because you can't question ideals in Singapore. There's a very kind of ceiling there. Like, you can't go in the media and talk about gay rights. Like, it's tough. Like, now they're starting to get a little bit more progressive. I think there's a day called Pink Day where people take a pink lighter in Singapore and put it to the sky. But like, you have like these small like flashes of progression. But for the most part, Singapore is still very controlled in its narrative of trying to enforce very particular doctrine down people's throats, and not really allowing for that type of freedom of expression that I think we take for granted here in the United States and in Canada. I think the third and final thing, which is a bit different, is I think in the US and Canada, there's a lot more of like polarization when it comes to schools of thought, right? And I think that's good and bad. Obviously in the US recently, we're seeing quite a lot of kind of the bad side of polarization, but the problem with Singapore is there's no polarization. So like, I just find that like your life is very limited there. You have a great quality of life, but I think what people believe in Singapore is that in order to get a good quality of life, you need to sacrifice certain things. And the things that I would want to sacrifice don't stem with like ideological beliefs, worldview. Like, I'm not willing to ever sacrifice stuff like that. So I just felt like, in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have lived in Singapore my whole life like I thought I would have when I was like 9 or 10 years old.
I'm a firm believer that our experiences in life determine who we become.
And
I think that was probably an important part of your life, that kind of combined experience of a culture like that, and then coming to Canada.
Yep.
It opens your mind in a different way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And perhaps you might have never become an entrepreneur staying in Singapore,
No.
but your experience in Singapore in some way probably triggered or influenced your desire to become an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And
Yep.
to open up your thinking beyond, okay, education, I need to
Yep.
study and go into a specific profession. Coming here kind of
Mm-hmm.
allowed a mind that was curious to actually explore that curiosity
Yep.
in a better sense, while you still probably, it gave you a greater appreciation for it because of where you came from, right?
Totally.
Um,
I mean, also just competitiveness, like
Yeah.
Singapore is an ultra competitive society. We have academic tracking there. So from like pretty much preschool, you're put into streams, right? The gifted stream, the average stream,
wow.
the needs work stream, like they follow that rigorously. And so for me, like my brother and I are ultra competitive. And I think it comes not only from Singapore, it just comes from, a brotherly rivalry that's
Yeah.
very loving. We're best friends. We love each other, but we always try to one up each other. And that was very important for me to develop, I think, because it gave me like this feeling of like, whatever it is I do, I just want to be the best at it. And whether that's in sports or debate or even with business, obviously it's hard to kind of quantify what you're going up against, but you obviously want to do the best that you can with whatever opportunities are in front of you.
How do you measure that for business? How do you get a sense of how good you are doing at your job?
I now actually think it's mainly based off like employee feedback. Like I think now we're at the standpoint where, I like to hear feedback directly from employees, and I hope that over time it changes. So like I do think one of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now is just being a good manager. Like being an entrepreneur doesn't mean you're going to be a good manager, right? Being a good
Right.
entrepreneur, you might be great at raising money, you might be good at thinking of an
I
idea, but
literally just said that to somebody. It's like the
right.
whole first part of building a business has nothing to do with actually running a
running and
business.
managing it.
So
No,
just because you raise the money does not mean you're a good CEO. It means you're a great
exactly.
fundraiser.
Exactly. And so now, we're a team of 25 people. Everything's remote. We obviously brought on a new team now with Player, and I'm having to realize that, okay, I need to get good at this. So
Yeah.
it's not just about reading books. It's about literally just listening to people, hearing what worked for them in the past, what continues to work for them now in terms of how they like to communicate, what sorts of things they expect from you, what sorts of things they expect from themselves, and keeping that dialogue open. So my biggest thing is I'm hoping that the feedback that I get 5 months ago, I'm able to act on it. And the next time people talk to me in a one-on-one or a monthly check-in, they give me better feedback that I can work with. That's one. And then I think number two is just more of like personal goals. Like I do have personal goals. And so though I can't compare myself to another entrepreneur, and I try to stay away from that now because there is a lot of, I think, harmful effects it can have on your mind too if you compare your chapter and kind of your story to other people that you have no clue what they're going through or what their, what their background even is. But I do have goals of my own. I have goals when it comes to like, this is where I want to be when I'm 25, and like it's not monetary goals as much of like lifestyle goals. Like I want to be in a situation where like I'm able to delegate work. That became a big goal for this year. Actually, honestly, it was like I don't want to have to like micromanage people. I want to be able to have a great team that I can rely upon, trust with all my heart to get a job done, and be able to focus on the three things that I think are very important to being CEO, which is fundraising, team management, and selling at a high level.
Bro, you know what's so cool about what you said, that lifestyle goal component? I feel like that's something that I have, in the last year found as well, from the standpoint of, I think I was overly focused on numbers, but when I started envisioning a lifestyle, it made every piece into like a micro goal, right? It was like upgrade the wardrobe, boom, found an opportunity to do that, right? Like, if you want to upgrade the car, like boom, keep your eyes out for that opportunity. Upgrade the spot you're living in, boom, make that move, right? But it's like when you just have such a focus on, what dollar would be in the bank account, it's like, how can you possibly go towards that? Because you don't know what you're going towards.
Yeah.
No.
And another thing about money is we all lose track of this, specifically as foreigners when you come over here and you translate you understand what dollars actually mean versus the currency that you come from. You lose track of the fact that money is actually transactional. That's what it's meant for. you're supposed to have a purpose or a vehicle to use that money for, versus just hoarding it and saving it. And that's how you actually grow your money, is by doing that. And I think that's a very valuable thing that I think you guys probably both have learned through entrepreneurship, that you actually have to spend money to grow your business, right? Like when you make the paycheck, it's like, okay, how do I reinvest this versus how do I save this for 20 years from now?
Yeah,
totally. And I think the big thing about money too, which started to make me think like maybe my life isn't contingent on money, was I did a really good brain exercise recently where I thought like, okay, let's imagine that Trufan sells for $25 million. Let's say $25 million Trufan sells for $25 million. What would I do with the money that I get from that transaction? And I started thinking, I'm like, a lot of the things that I claim that I would want to do with that money have nothing to do with money. Like they have nothing to do with money. Like moving my mother from Calgary to Toronto is not even something that I need money for. It's just something I need to commit time towards helping my mom build her business, which she just launched about 4 or 5 months ago. And so I started kind of taking a look at the goals that I have in life, and I started realizing a lot of them aren't kind of coming from money. It's more just coming from like being able to allocate time to it. And again, it goes back to your lifestyle and kind of the life you want to live. So I think, 100% money is crucial for a lot of things, but for a lot of my goals, at least, I just know that my goals aren't entirely always tied to money as much as just time and effort that I can put towards other things that I want to do.
Yeah. And I want to touch into this because when we're talking to you, I mean, when you look at you, you can tell that you're probably you're fairly young, but our audience kind of needs to know that you're only 24 years old.
23. It's a beard that kind of adds to the year, but
I mean, it's not connecting, so I figured it was still maturity phase. But I think it's I think it's very valuable with the changing landscape, specifically in our countries, that young people get in touch with entrepreneurship and what it is their goals are at a younger age. And I think in our cultures, or generally foreign cultures, education is something that's always kind of pushed on us, right? Like, first get your degree and then start your business. Both of you guys kind of took a different path, which was, okay, I value education, but there are more ways to get it than through an academic institution. And these academic institutions are actually probably restricting my ability to actually have purposeful education. So I'm fairly familiar with Partha's story, but I want to get into yours, because when did you drop out of school? What gave you, most importantly, what gave you the confidence to do that? And then how do you think other young people at 15, 16, 17 should start thinking now versus how they used to have to think 15 years ago about their futures at a younger age?
Sure. I mean, I'm on a leave of absence just because my mom might be listening to this. So I'm not gonna say dropped out, but I'm on a leave of absence from the University of Toronto. I took time off in 2017. So in 2017, it was actually interesting because after my second year of college, I started working with a guy named Trevor Booker, played for the Brooklyn Nets. And he had started this VC called JB Fitzgerald, and so I was helping him out. And through that kind of time in New York,
can we just stop there? Where did that come from?
It was a DM. It was literally a DM.
What age were you?
I was, oh my God, this is like 19 years old. Yeah, 19, 20 years
in
old.
college.
I was in college, wrapping up my second year.
You DM'd ever?
I didn't. He DM'd me, so it was interesting.
Okay, let's
DM
get into the backstory here, because I think you skipped where your story actually starts. Okay.
So grade 12, lost to my home country, Singapore, in the Grand Championships of debating, and realized that, okay, you know what? I'm angry, but I want to take debating to the next level. So normally a debater will want to go to law school, or they'll want to be a politician. Politics is still a big ambition of mine. I one day do envision myself running for office. I don't know where, I don't know at what level, but I do envision that. Like, public service is very important to me, but I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do at 18 years old. So I wanted to go down the path of law. And after my first year, I took an internship to go down to DC and do speech writing. One of our big clients was actually the White House, which we were able to work on certain national security advisors and write speeches for them, which is great. And then I went into second year. I declared my major, peace, conflict, and justice studies, which is basically conflict resolution. Ideal for a lawyer to have that type of background. And went through second year and realized this is not for me. So it was kind of halfway through second year where I started reconnecting with my high school debate partner, Arjun. He is a genius, in my opinion. Arjun in grade 12 had built a cure for cancer using gold nanoparticles. He went to the Sanofi BioGenius Challenge. He won that. He went to Intel ISAF. He came third. He was on Team Canada along with Anne
Wait,
McIntyre.
he cured cancer and he came third?
Yeah. Like, who came first? I think that was actually the year that there was a guy named Jack Andraka, who Partha you might know. Yeah, right? You know Jack. So I think he was part of that year, and I think Jack took the gold prize.
What did he do? I forgot.
I forgot too, but I know that Jack's part of AAT, which is why I know about Jack.
It had to be bigger than curing cancer.
It had to be bigger than curing cancer. But to be fair,
that's such a level of unreal expectation for kids these days. How can you come third? You got the bronze for curing cancer, the number one problem.
To be fair, you know, that was Intel ISAF. Then he won the Sanofi BioGenius Challenge. He came first in that. He won Planned Canada's top 20 under 20 in 2014. He was a year older than me, but he debated as well.
Did you
unreal debater.
I think it was racism. That's what
I'm just saying. No.
Did you do the competitions yourself, like the science competitions and stuff?
Only in grade 7 and 8, because it was the Calgary Science School I went to, so you kind of had to, but no,
it wasn't
not
my
in high
thing
school.
either. It was only when I met all y'all, like Gen Z, you know, smart entrepreneurial folks. Like, there's a small clique for everybody listening of Gen Z crew. So it's like, you know, Swish is one of them, Ann is one of them, Aaron Esau is one of them. I mean, we could go on, but
Ben Stern,
of course,
Stern, I love that.
So there's a crew, right? And that whole crew, I feel like, was involved in, you know, some sort of like, hey, I'm a genius high school kid type stuff.
Pretty much.
In high school, like, I didn't know that world was even happening. I was so much more focused on, like, you know, trying to get a girlfriend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, we were too, to be fair, but
That's why they were doing these things.
That's why we were doing these things. Why do you
we went about it differently, bro? Yours was clearly a better way to go about it. That's hilarious, though. So you just did the debate at a very high level, then.
Debate at a very high level, because my brother actually had debated too, and he was part of Team Canada, and he won the world championship in grade 12. So I kind of followed in his path. I obviously never won, but in grade 12, actually, when I competed in the grand final against Singapore, he was my coach. So it was really cool to, you know, have my brother be my coach.
That's
and
lit.
You know, to be able to travel
where'd
with him.
your initial like clout moment happen?
That was top 20 under 20. That was when I was 17. I think it was because of debating. I had been ranked against the number 2 debater in the Americas. After doing the Pan American Championship.
Who set these rankings? Like from the competition, you're saying?
From the competition. It was the Pan American Debating Championship
that's lit,
from Mexico,
bro.
the US, and Canada. And so I came second individually. As a team, we came first because Canada dominates. We were one of the best debating countries, I think, in the world for like 3 years, which is great.
That's a movie script developing right here.
I know. What makes you good at debate?
Yeah. I think 2 things. One is, I think it's you know, I'm very reasonable when I talk. Like I try to think that, especially even when I'm pitching, like I try to be honest about what I think I'm going to win on. Like, are these issues I believe I can win on? And then if there are issues that I feel like I can't win on because it's like an empirical fact and I can't dispute it, I try to play it down and make it sound not that important. So I think it was like weighing of issues was one thing I was really good at, and doing that in a reasonable way. And then I think number 2, honestly, is just more of like, I read a lot. Like I read a lot. I had a monthly subscription to The Economist. I was very well informed for the brief 3 years. Now maybe not as much. Like I go with the headlines, but I was really doing a lot of reading in high school. And that helped a lot too, because a lot of the topics we were given, you're given the topic like 30 minutes beforehand. You're not allowed a cell phone, and you have to go off what you know.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like you need to be able to read a lot and know a lot.
Let me ask you how that debate structure, actually two follow. The first one being as good as that one, I'm sure that made you a very confident person.
Oh yeah.
And you were tall, young, so that you were already confident going in. Yeah.
But the first question being, I know in reading, what makes you becoming such a great debater so interesting is that you have a speech impediment, right?
Yep.
How did you overcome that? Because I'm sure there's, no matter how, I know you were the tallest kid in 3rd grade, I'm sure that did cause you some insecurity issues at a younger age.
Yeah.
How did you, that's a pretty drastic change, right? From that should make you not confident in standing up and debating another person.
No.
Yet it triggered your success in it, probably, I think.
Maybe, yeah. I definitely, I didn't overcome it. Like, I still have it, and it comes out, honestly. I speak too quickly sometimes. I get too excited, and I just, it starts coming out normally when I don't hydrate properly, drink water, have enough saliva in my mouth. But at the same time, I in grade 7, the main issue is that my full name's Ferocious, a lot of S's and R's there, and I couldn't pronounce, either letter. It became very awkward for me. Like, I used to dread first day of class where you have to, like, obviously no one can read my name. When the teacher got to my name, she paused and I'd put my hand up being like, oh yeah, that's me. And then she'd ask me how to pronounce my name. And that was a nightmare. And then I did therapy for 2 weeks. And I just felt like it was bogus. Like, I was being told to change something that people thought I was wrong. And like, I don't know, I knew things were wrong. I just didn't understand, like, in a world where like people can have different hair colors and have different like facial appearances, like why is it so weird that I sound a bit different? And why is that considered to be a flaw when like other kind of facial appearances don't, immediately appear to be a flaw? Like, yes, they might, people have preferences, but I didn't entirely get that. And I think I got a bit confused, and I think I went into debate because the year I went into debate, my brother had won the world championship, and I'm like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm going to put myself in the most uncomfortable position possible. People are going to make fun of me potentially, but like, I think it's the best way to deal with it is like, hopefully over time I get better at public speaking, I get more confident, and the issue becomes less of an issue, which eventually it did. My speech impediment was a lot worse in grade 7 than it is now. And I think, one of my favorite moments of feedback was in grade 9. I was at a debate competition. I had just given my speech. We were waiting for feedback, and one of the judges was like, oh my God, Swish, unbelievable speech, but I cannot wait until you get your retainer taken out. And I'm like, dude,
I hate to break it to you.
I don't have a retainer, man.
Yeah.
So like, moments like that happen, but it was just cool to start to realize that over time, people didn't really care how I sounded. They cared more about what I said. And that became the big impetus for reading, becoming knowledgeable, really being invested in whatever it is I do. Like, even now when I pitch, like, I know people like obviously respond to certain pitches better, but in my opinion, they're really looking for good content, which I know. They're looking for coherent, concise answers, which I can give. And they're looking for people to be reasonable with them and be honest with them, which I was. So I think there are a lot of factors that made me a successful debater past just like maybe not having the Morgan Freeman voice that everyone wishes they had.
And it's funny. I don't even need to ask the second part of the question because you answered it. The second part of the question was, do you feel like your debate skills help you when you make pitches now?
For sure. But the thing that, I have this theory. I think that if you're a young entrepreneur or if you're a technical founder, right, you need to have something that gives somebody a reason to think you might be like a Rain Man type. You know what I mean? I have a friend, I'll leave him unnamed, who had to take pills for a mental condition he had, right? And he would go off of his pills whenever he was meeting with VCs. Because he was like, they fucking love when I'm crazy, dude.
Edgy,
it worked.
Yeah.
My take is that your lisp makes you come across smarter because you also speak fast with it and confidently with it, and it like disarms somebody. And so I think it's actually a significant, I think it's like, you know, the shield with the like scuff on it, right? It's like a significant advantage for relatability, I think.
And that's great, you know, and I think it's, you know, speaking that's with entrepreneurship, I think with public speaking, like I still do it, right? I still speak under a bureau now. My biggest claim to fame, if you will, when it comes to speaking is I want to be relatable.
Yeah,
I want to be relatable.
You're a genuinely kind, relatable person as
right?
well, and that makes it easy for you. But
until you start a debate with him.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm very pretentious when I debate. You don't want to get into that, but yeah,
we're gonna have to. We'll get into a little bit of a debate topic a little later too when we get the top fives.
Yeah, but
so take us into dropping out of college.
Yep.
And the hypothesis of Trufan, and how you turned whatever your concept or your idea in your head was into reality as a business.
Totally. So I left off with Arjun in second year. You know, I reconnected with Arjun, and we thought, why don't we build a wearables product, right? So that was our first attempt. Like, why don't we build something that allows athletes to know whether or not they're close to an injury or not? It's actually really cool that, you know, Partha and I eventually connected, because Arjun had done a lot of work in the hardware space. And that was his kind of big thing, is that he was working not only now on cancer research, he moved past it. He was trying to look at hardware that potentially could help with injury prevention. He already solved it. He's like, you know, ticked off,
let's
like
solve everything else.
Solve the big problems. Let me solve the small.
Exactly. And I obviously, you know, had a good network because I was interviewing a lot of people in my first and second year for LinkedIn. I was part of their campus editor program. I was interviewing one person a month and tried to find like successful people that were high net worth. And I knew that if we worked together, I easily could help them with fundraising. So we worked together, and that's actually how I started meeting people like Gary Vee, for example. Like I sat down with Gary Vaynerchuk. The video's still up. It's Gary Vaynerchuk meets with a young fan. And it's from like 3, 4, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe, or whatever. And Trevor actually saw that video. So Trevor saw that video, and he reached out to me over DMs. And I actually didn't respond to him initially because he was under my message request. And this was like 3 years ago. So I didn't even know that thing existed. And then his business partner, Jonah, reached out to me too. And I didn't reach out. I didn't reach back. And then eventually, like, I think 2 weeks later, I looked at the DMs and I'm like, holy shit, is this like a scam or something? Like, what is happening? Replied to Trevor. He came down to play the Raptors a few months later. I met him and he was like, I really like your kind of entrepreneurial drive. I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And he's like, I want you to come work for me. Like, I'd love, you know, I'm starting this VC. It's called JB Fitzgerald.
Shout out to Trevor Booker. What?
Recognize
that is
literally.
What a real recognized real.
Literally. Yeah.
That is impressive.
I got to work with him.
Shout out to Gary Vee too.
Shout out to Gary. Well, obviously, you know, and it's, you know, Gary, it's full circle because actually Gary's now a client of ours. So it's kind of like a very cool full circle there, and you know, being able to get his advice is incredible. But I think that the biggest thing with Trevor is he saw something, worked with him. I did a deal with DC United for him, brought Ben's company Nobo in, and they got investment from Trevor. And then past that, I became roommates with a guy named Elliot, and Elliot kind of changed my life. And I think he was also kind of the second Trevor for me, or like maybe even like it was like Trevor, Gary, and then him in terms of who changed my life away from law. Because Elliot had started this big Instagram account at Dunk, and he had no business mindset. Like, he was a very creative guy. He knew how to grow accounts, but he didn't know how to do payroll. Yeah. He didn't know how to hire people. He didn't know how to work with brands too well. He didn't know how to put together a case studies deck or pitch. He didn't know how to fundraise. So I decided to come in and help him with all of that. We, you know, during that time of working with him for about 7 months, living in New York with him, you know, we were able to go from about, I think, 5 accounts to about 21 accounts in total, with 11 million followers overall on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. We worked with Warner Music, Gatorade, 2K. And in the process of doing all of that, we started really getting an inside look into influencer marketing and what's wrong with brands when they work with influencers, whether they weren't paying attention. Yeah, go ahead.
Right there. How did you get yourself those clients at what, 20 are we?
We're at 21. Yeah, now we're 20. No, 20.
Okay. He's legal.
No, this was 2017. No, I'm at 20. I'm 23. Yeah, that was 20.
Were you lying about your age?
Man, come on. At the end of the day, Singapore, you know, we don't really know. No, I'm kidding. No, 20 years old, working on Dunk. And I think the biggest thing for us is because a lot of these big brands were already following our pages. So like 2K, for example, already followed Dunk because we had
You
about
can
2.2 million
DM them.
followers. So we DM'd them and then we got a
Bet.
contact and went from there.
So
So
you did everything just by understanding how to play the game. You understood the value of what you were building. And like what taught you to understand how important building a community was, like before influencer marketing really started to become, understood to any extent, right? And you really like community centric marketing. It was a very new thing at that time too.
Very new.
That a social network is actually a social network and a
Yeah.
business network, right? And
Yep,
a consumer
exactly.
network.
So like where does that come from for you? Like the ability to identify that?
It came from actually not just Dunk. It came from me growing my LinkedIn community simultaneously. So
Oh, word.
it was cool because when I moved to New York, I had a lot of friends that were YouTubers. So like one of my friends was Sam Sheffer, and he works out of the same studio as Casey Neistat, and he'd throw a meetup every month to meet some of his YouTube subscribers. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, okay, 30, 40 people coming out, awesome event, great people. But man, at that time, maybe I had 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm like, I should do this on LinkedIn. So I decided to put up a meetup. Washington Square Park was the first one I hosted.
Oh, nice.
And we had about 7 people come out. It started raining and we went to a Starbucks and continued the conversation there. And I decided to do this type of meetup everywhere I went. So now I think I've hosted over 40 meetups and, Mumbai, Singapore, London, in Germany, in Calgary, in Winnipeg, in New York, in LA. I've hosted meetups all across. And it was really cool to be able to have that community-centric mindset while building LinkedIn, while building my LinkedIn following, and then taking those principles into Dunk in terms of how to build an engaged following where we can still obviously profit and we can make money off brand deals, but we're finding the right partnerships and not just trying to do brand deals for the sake of doing brand deals.
And I want to pause you right there because I think it underlines an important point. I actually talked about this on social media this week about, I think a lot of people misunderstand social media in the sense that they only focus on the digital aspect of it, right? Can I DM someone? Can I meet someone digitally and start a conversation? I think what's really cool and powerful about what you did was you took those digital connections and made them real world connections. And built real relationships. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that for young people who are trying to build an audience? Because I meet a lot of young people whose social skills are only on social media. They can't have a real conversation with a real person. It's the importance of having both of those and that balance still in an ever-changing digital world.
Well, it really is. I mean, there's a practical benefit. And the practical benefit is the way algorithms on social media are built right now is that they don't rely on likes as much as comments. So for LinkedIn, for Instagram, the way that you get more views on your post or end up in the discover feed or end up, doing really well with a LinkedIn post and getting blasted on multiple people's pages is mainly through comments, because every platform has recognized that it's really easy to leave a like, but if you're leaving a comment, it means you actively seek that content out and you're engaging with it on a higher level.
Okay.
So the biggest thing to do then is think about, how do I drive comments? How do I make sure that people who view my content feel an urge to comment? And sure, you might have those one-off posts where you have a kick-ass call to action, you have a post that really just tugs at the heartstrings, and that's going to work. But for most of your posts, I don't think that's going to be the case. For most of your posts, you need to have a community that just really fucks with you as a person. And that no matter what you share, they love you as a person, which is why they're going to go in and comment, because they want to have that conversation with you. And that's where you have 3 ways to then connect with them. You can just reply to them, and that's underrated, especially on LinkedIn. Like even today, like I have over 130,000 followers on LinkedIn now. And I think the reason I have such a big community is because I reply to every single comment I get. I don't care if it takes me until 3 a.m. to get through my comment section.
Smart.
I will make sure that every single person in a reasonable time frame, like within a week of that post being up, I will try to get back to that person. And I'm not just going to be like, thank you, or I'm not going to be like, the fucking 2 hands emojis. Like I'm actually going to try to respond. If you left me a valid comment, I'm going to try to respond with a valid, appropriate response. The second thing, which I did early on, I don't do it as much anymore, is getting on a 5-minute call with people that comment on your post. So don't only just reply to them, say, hey, you want to get on a quick chat? Really appreciate you reaching out and commenting. And doing those 5-minute calls is great because people actually get a really quick idea of who you are. They get to quickly talk to you. And then the next time they see your post, now they're like, oh, I spoke to Swish. Yeah, I like him. I know exactly where he comes from. He knows a bit about me. And you form a deeper connection than just only relying on comments. And then the third and final thing are meetups, right? And just actually physically being able to see people. And obviously right now, virtual events are in because of COVID. Throw a virtual event, and 2 people show up, it's totally fine. Like my favorite example of growth is Mr. Beast. You take a look at Mr. Beast, it's like he's so community oriented and he didn't give a shit about how many followers he had initially. PewDiePie didn't care about how many followers he had initially. Gary V, like all these people, you can go back and find the pieces of content where they were like, thank you for 100 followers because they genuinely meant it. So that's just important to be able to kind of go into that mindset from day one.
You just gave us a great clip that I think is going to be valuable for a lot of people when we put it out.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, dude,
thank you.
That's like,
Yes,
that's crazy.
finally.
That's the recipe, but
Yeah.
it's also, I think it gives you a lot more respect for the people who are actually building these platforms and communities day to day, right? It's not,
Not
it's
easy.
not just people posting, booty
It's a lot of
pictures on
work.
Instagram. Like
Yep.
there's a lot of work that goes in. I think kudos to you on how much time you actually invest in making sure this community around you is, feeling valued.
Yep. And Seth Godin has, his 1,000 customer or 1,000 loyal fans or loyal subscriber thing. And I think that still is valuable and important because you can have 1 million followers if they're not engaged with you and genuinely, it doesn't matter how many followers you have.
Yeah, I don't even think you need 1,000. I think, personally speaking, on LinkedIn, I think you only need 15 people to really care about you. And if you got 15 comments per post, I guarantee you're hitting like 5,000 plus views per post already. That's just the way the algorithm works. It's the way LinkedIn is because LinkedIn has over 80 million people that post. 80 million active users in North America, and only about 10% of LinkedIn users in North America actually post. So there's a lot of white space there. And so in a world where
that white space, I'm going to get
right, so it's not saturated. It's not like YouTube or Instagram where, there's still a white space in certain niches, but for the most part, like people have figured out how to post on those platforms, and it's a thing you do on those platforms. But on LinkedIn, a lot of people don't even know you can post, and B, it's like they still find it awkward.
Yeah, it's funny because Partha and I recently got on TikTok, and part of the reason we got on TikTok is because we've been reading that it's genuinely an easier platform to gain followers and more engaging. People are more likely to engage. It doesn't have as much of that kind of I'm too cool to have more follow more people than followers. Like that's not as apparent there, and it seems like the same is true for LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, 100%. And obviously on LinkedIn, it's just such a different kind of field. Like people, this year, for example, like I got put onto this top voices list for LinkedIn, and I was looking at the other people that were on it, and like most of them had like 500, 1,500, 3,000 followers. But like that's the thing, like it's not really about followers on LinkedIn. It's more just about like the content you're sharing. Is it actually valuable to the community, the professional community? And again, like 80% of our lives are made up of work. We need to have an outlet to talk about it. So
what do you think about these, like, the posts that you see go viral and
double space, kind of exaggerated,
like,
my dog took a shit type ones. Yeah. It's fine. Like clickbait is a thing on YouTube, right? Like every platform has kind of its,
it's true,
weird algorithm friendly baity stuff. But I don't know. For me, like it's not kind of the thing I like to do. Like I like to switch things up. Like I used to kind of be really a fan of call to actions, and then after that, I started to become a fan of just trying new types of content out. So I was one of the early people on live streams. I did that once a week. I wrote a lot of obviously publications in terms of articles on LinkedIn, interviewing people. I did a hashtag campaign on LinkedIn once where I called it "Let's Get Honest." Got together with 4 other quote influencers. I hate that word, but just people that were like posting actively on LinkedIn, had built up a community. And we put out this thing like, we want you to be vulnerable in the workplace. Here we go. We're going to kick it off, and I'm going to nominate 2 people. They're going to put a video. They're going to nominate 2 people, and the total campaign in total got about 26 million views. And LinkedIn actually featured it as like a part of its column, like its side tab, to be able to see all the posts of people that were mentioning the hashtag Let's Get Honest. So for me, like, I want to continue to find ways to always stand out, be different, but like just have fun. You know, like at the end of the day, if I'm not having fun posting, like I'm not gonna do it. Like I don't post every day. I only post when I really like feel a sense of like, okay, I need to get this across, or you know what, I'm feeling like I have a really great idea and I think this could be something fun to do on LinkedIn.
Well, in listening to you for the last 10 or so minutes, it's clear that you're very knowledgeable in this space, and then 2, very mindful and consistent in continuing to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does for me is it makes me understand why your business is what it is, right? So there's a lot of connectivity between what you talked about in the last 10 minutes and what Trufan actually does. So I think it's a good segue now for you to tell us and the audience about what Trufan is. And then also we'll get into some of your cool clients and cool things that you've done.
Yeah, sure. No, Trufan, we celebrated our 3rd birthday 2 days ago. So it started December 7th, 2017 was when I kind of jotted down the early idea on a piece of paper. And the early iteration of Trufan was, let's build a simple platform where any brand, any influencer could find their top fans on social media, specifically on Instagram and Twitter. And the first iteration was, let's just show you your top 100 fans. Okay. We had built an algorithm to define what a fan actually meant. It meant engagement, specifically around comments. And then we also allowed you to find influential fans, so people that not only engage with your content, but were also influential. That was the early iteration of Trufan. About kind of, let's say, did that for about a year and a half. And then around kind of November of 2019, we had an opportunity to acquire a company called Social Rank. And the cool thing is, initially, we were only looking at, okay, we will help you find your top fans. But a lot of our customers were like, what about my competitors' top fans? What about an influencer I'm working with? I want to make sure if they have a real following. I want to make sure they're legit. So what Social Rank had done is built a database of a crazy amount of profiles and a crazy amount of audience reports that would allow Nike to look at Adidas, would allow Sprite to look at Pepsi, would allow a LeBron to look at KD. You know, you're able to look at your competitor, understand their audience, and then really go granular. So you could find all the people that followed LeBron James that were based in Toronto, verified, between 50,000 and 150,000 followers that loved milk because they posted about milk. That's how granular, how specific you can get. And so we acquired this platform, integrated it with our fan engagement technology. So we built fan profiles for every single profile on the system. So now we have over 2.4 billion unique social profiles on the system, over 10 million audience reports. A lot of our clients, again, big name brands like Netflix, the NBA, the NFL, Procter & Gamble, Samsung, a lot of small businesses started using the platform too, because we rolled affordable pricing out past April. So during COVID, we wanted to help small businesses out, threw out a cheapest plan. We've actually made that even more affordable. So before it was $24.99. Now it's about $10 a month at our most affordable plan. And then we then had the opportunity to acquire another platform about a month ago called Player. And kind of our big approach into 2021 is going to be around first-party data. So for the last kind of 3 years, we've dealt with third-party data from Instagram and Twitter. But in my opinion, the marketing industry is moving towards first-party data, especially with privacy concerns. Brands are going to need to learn how to effectively generate high-quality customer data. And that's where we want to play going forward.
Yeah, I mean that was lit, dude.
Yeah,
that's why you left us speechless. We didn't you answered all of our follow-up questions.
Yeah. Who are your customers? Or like, what are you doing next? Yeah.
You've definitely pitched your ass off, bro.
Oh, this month, man. Like it's just been again and again and again and again. So yeah, no, I appreciate that.
That's wild. That's wild. So, now let's get into some of the fun stuff a little bit. Okay. Let's get into a little bit of the, like, I guess, like the sports side of things, right? So like you have gone, I think a unique path for somebody building a company in the tech space. I know you're marketing tech, but still, from the standpoint of how you've built out your community and network of friends and peers and I think that's one thing, you know, we all share in common in this group. And I think it's something I really appreciate about you is like your energy is super, you know, you pull some really like high quality people around you, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was that always a thing for you? Did you have to work for that? Like, did you like, I'll tell you personally, for me, like I've had, I feel like a significant amount of like me in my own way moments in my
Mhm.
life where I'm just
Mhm.
like having to overcome like mental blocks to like allow
Yep.
myself to like really, you know, do what I do.
Yep.
And that took a long time for me to get there.
Right.
It feels like you got there at a much earlier age. Even hearing you say, you know, later in my life at 16, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
He's
Yeah.
did you
he's
feel any sort
Benjamin
of like,
Buttons over here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, did you feel that, dude? Like, did you ever struggle with like, you know, letting yourself shine like that?
Mhm.
Not really. Like, I think I was fairly confident to just share what I was doing and kind of put out a very clear energy in the world. Um, I was a social butterfly in high school, so I jumped
Mhm.
around a lot. You know, I was my grade 12 class president because I just, you know, was friends with everyone, and I realized that in university though that I wanted to change that. I wanted to
Mhm.
not be friends with everyone. I wanted to be really good friends with a few people, because in high school I realized that I couldn't have pointed at someone who I felt like would have picked up a phone call at 3 a.m. Obviously
Yeah.
it's high school, like I hope they're not fucking waking up at 3 a.m. to pick up a phone call, but you know what I mean. Like in life I
Yeah.
feel like you need to have that 3 a.m. buddy, that person that picks up a phone and helps you out and kind of gives you unconditional love. And so for me, that became the big focus for college. Is like, let's restart. Obviously, the cricket network, the debate network, the high school network, fantastic. Love those people. But I have a fresh start now to kind of figure out my friend group and make sure that my friend group, regardless of what they're interested in, genuinely appreciates me and is supportive of me and loves me. That's what I did. You know, two of my best friends right now, Quinn and Sakshi. Like Quinn's actually an entrepreneur now. He just started his business a few months ago, and he's raising money. I think he's closing around now, which I'm really excited about. But you know, both of them, unconditional love, best friends type situation, and that gave me then the confidence to go and do whatever I wanted, because I felt like, you know, even if I blow the opportunity to be friends with someone, or if I turn someone off, like at least I have my kind of, you know, two friends at home, my brother, my mom, and that's all I really need.
Yeah.
So that was a big kind of thing. But I gotta admit, man, like I'm actually a pretty shy person. Like in big crowds, like if I'm not speaking on stage and like I'm just like floating around, like I'm not a very like flamboyant person. Like I'm not
Yeah.
like trying to be the spotlight or center of attention. When I party, I love to be the life of the party. Like I love to be the guy like first drunk, like playing the games
Well,
and like
hey,
being the
where
DJ.
was this Swish whenever I tried to get you to hang out in St. Louis?
That was just tough. That was work. That was work. I mean, like I don't
How
think it was a good
how is that
indication,
wor
but
at nighttime? Is that work?
I don't. I
He
think I was
he
going
wanted to
through.
wake up early, man.
I
He's
was.
he's going through his pitches in his
Yeah,
head. Remember,
I was. I'm
this is the
almost
great
certain.
debater here, so
I'm
he
almost
didn't have
certain
time for
in
you.
St. Louis, man. I think I was going through girl issues. I think that was around the time where I had to go home and like figure things out and talk to someone that was really close to me at the time. That I think was the reason why. But you know, I could be wrong. Like maybe I was tired and just like being a stupid sport as well. But I like to party. I like to have fun. But generally speaking, like if it's just like, you know, a big crowd or a group of people, or if I went back to a college environment, like I'm not that like, you know, out there. You know, I like to
Dude,
stay to
I'm
my own
Seems like
lane.
absolutely
you're very intentional now
yeah,
in your
Very,
I'm
friendships and
absolutely
your life.
dying for you and Onik
yeah.
to come visit me in LA.
I can't wait. I literally cannot wait. Like once COVID, man,
Yeah,
is
as
just like
soon as this
better.
ends. Yeah.
I want to go to the US. I want to go to New York. I want to go to Chicago. I want to go to LA. I just want to like get out of here and just, you know, be a 23-year-old again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so,
Yeah,
so part of what you get your thrill in probably is in your work.
yeah. A
Um,
lot. That's all I really do, right? It's
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it helps. It helps that
Yeah.
you get to, through your work,
Yep.
interact and actually help build a
Hmm.
lot of cool pop culture things that the rest
Hmm.
of society and most 23-year-olds actually care about. You're helping to move the needle. So tell us about some of the cooler projects. I saw you've worked with Kevin Hart, you've
Yeah.
worked with the NBA. Like,
Hmm.
tell us about these projects and like
Oh,
how cool.
don't leave out the Raptors one.
Oh man, yeah. We've done some pretty interesting work. Like, growing up, I was a big Kobe Bryant fan, which meant I was a big Lakers fan. And so having someone like Kyle Kuzma come on as an investor was like a pinch me moment. Being able to meet him in
By
LA.
the way, Swish, you know who I got really like I've like become very close with recently? Bar
Who's Bar?
Malik.
Oh, the guy from
Barcode.
and he has a friend Mujahid. I remember I was giving a pitch to someone at Bar.
Mubarak Malik.
Mubarak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bar, yeah.
Bar, yeah. I remember
He's training Kuz now.
And I got connected to through Ben. I don't know if you know Ben, like who's his manager.
I know him, but I haven't met him in person.
Got it. Yeah. No, but good people, great team. So that was a pinch me moment. Really, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is weird. Like, grew up fantasizing about this team, and now brought someone on.
Like, have you been able to go to any Lakers stuff?
I went to a game. Like, this was maybe a year and a half ago when we brought Kuz on, and I got to do we had like a paintball session with Kuz and dope. Kentavious Caldwell Pope was there.
How did that one get arranged? Did you just get a text saying paintball tomorrow?
Yeah, because the guy who introduced me to Kuz is actually an investor in us too. He went to the University of Utah with Kuz. And so, Austin, my friend, he was like, yo, we're going to go paintballing. You want to come? I'm like, fuck, like I'm more of a laser tag guy myself, but sure, whatever. And so I ended up showing up.
Hurts, dude.
It hurts, dude. But it also it didn't help that we were going up against 6, 7 really fit athletes that just
the fittest on the planet, dude.
Literally
targets though.
Yeah, so I mean they're bigger targets, but to be fair, it's like I also shoot them. It doesn't hurt them. It hurts me. Yeah.
They're slim, dude.
They are slim, man. So that was cool. Obviously, Kevin Hart campaign, that was really neat to be able to do that, and to be able to also work with the Raptors. The Raptors is probably the coolest campaign we worked on because it was like I was in Toronto, companies based in Toronto. We had just made the finals. We had this incredible energy in the city, and then
that
to
was
be able
Drake as the main ambassador, right?
Yeah, main ambassador, and this was like the 20.
So what was it?
Yeah, it was 2018 Grand Finals. We used our algorithm to find 2 fans. Well, actually, one technically. She had a kid, but she was a mom who was going to mortgage her house in order to be able to buy her son a Game 1 NBA Finals ticket because it was her son Lincoln's 10th birthday on the day of Game 1. So we DM'd them. Raptors gave us these tickets. We told them hey, you're going to the game, but we'd love to, by the way, just shoot some content, get to know who are you as a Raptors fan. Interviewed her, documented her process to the game. She took some videos at the game and then put together a video, shared it. The Raptors shared it as well, and it was a really cool feel good moment. I feel like those feel good moments, it's exactly what you want to put out in the world, and it was really good from a company branding perspective too to be associated to that project.
Yeah,
wow, you're gonna mortgage her house, bro?
Mortgage her house. I don't know if it was real or not, but the fact that our platform picked that tweet up, I thought was just really cool to be able to just see that and then be like, okay, this is probably our fan. Probably the person we're gonna pick. But she was a really passionate fan. She was a really, really passionate.
That's so dope, bro.
Yeah.
Do good and build your business at the same time. I mean, how can
you turn that down?
Yeah.
How
big of a deal is impact to you? Do you think about that?
A lot. I actually feel helpless a lot, because things like Black Lives Matter, or climate change, or even if you take a look at education, obviously is very close to home.
Or
COVID, right? I feel out of the loop on all of this. And so obviously I can spread the word via Instagram stories and bring awareness to issues, and I can donate money. But I think I've been constantly trying to think what more can I do? What more can I do? And I don't every time I think of something, I always want to get away from the idea of okay, but you're already busy. Because I don't want to be one of those guys that makes a fortune and then becomes philanthropic. I'd rather have seeds of philanthropy throughout. And
a lifestyle, right?
Exactly. Because money is, again, a unit of change. And obviously the more money you have, potentially the more change you can bring about in a shorter period of time. But if you want to bring true, sustainable, long-term change, you got to be able to do it from day one.
But the money and change thing is really getting to me.
Yeah.
The wordplay there.
Yeah.
You said it so many times. You said money makes change.
Change. Yeah. And you were just like, good
You
one.
better
Good
be
one.
careful.
Yeah.
He's gonna start a new career as a rapper if you're not careful.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I actually have recorded a song once, and I'm not sharing the name of it. It was a real producer that produced it in Calgary.
Was it 40? Did you get 40?
It was off 40. It was actually a pretty good. He has a pretty good SoundCloud
Could
now.
you
But
imagine if it was 40?
yeah,
I've done one track. Who'd you do it with? 40?
40.
What?
Yeah, oh my God. I was actually telling people I recently got connected to Rick Ross, and
Oh, that's dope.
he called. He
He's
called
a
me.
really
Actually,
smart guy.
a very smart guy. Called me
Yeah.
this morning and chatted briefly, and yeah, just like very weirdly inquisitive about tech and like about kind of future, like what the future is going to look like within marketing. And obviously, he knows a lot about YouTube because he's worked with a few YouTubers as well. So yeah, just like was blown away, like the amount of like people that are just like
Did
looking.
he hit you with a couple custom trademark ad libs?
No, not really. Like he definitely had a deep voice, which I was happy about. It would have been kind of scary if he had like a chipmunk voice. I feel I would have felt a little betrayed after listening to his music for so long. But I thought initially that we would have talked about like potentially getting me on a track or something, but that just didn't happen. So it is what it is.
You pick it up. You're just if you're actually expecting that, it's like.
I think
I was thinking like a good Christmas album, like Carols and Karens. That's what I was thinking. Carols and Karens. That'd be good. I thought that'd be a good album name. But
do you have the desire in your life? Like I found this too, where you can kind of navigate the circles and like really spend time in communities you have a tremendous passion for, like hanging out with rappers, talking like athletes, like that's fun.
Yeah,
it's super fun, right? Especially when you're a fan of both, like all the culture around it. And so just like participating in the culture scape, do you have like certain artists or like athletes that are really significant role models to you that you eventually want to build some sort of business relationship or something like that with?
I've thought about this actually very recently because of fundraising, and I wrote down like a kind of goal sheet. The athletes, or not even athletes, like generally speaking, the people that I would love to meet and work with. Number one is Taika Waititi. I don't know if you guys know Taika Waititi. He's a director from New Zealand. He directed Thor Ragnarok, and he also directed Jojo Rabbit. And he's incredibly creative.
What do you like about him?
So creative, like one of the most creative directors. I used to watch a lot of the behind the scenes of like him explaining scenes, how he came up with it. He also like has done dubbing for like Korg, like like the New Zealand like rocks guy in Thor, like he does the dubbing for that. So just like a really charismatic, creative guy.
Are you into film like to that degree?
Like,
would you produce a film?
I would love to even go to film school. I think past being, if I ever went back to school, I'd definitely go to film school. I would love to learn how to direct a movie.
So you're you're a true creator, dude. You're not.
I would love
to.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like you're a creator who does business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like I'm very creative. Like I genuinely have the most fun. Whether it's like last year we were working with K-Swiss on designing a shoot. That was like the best kind of fucking 2 weeks of my life. Or whether it's like the Raptors film, like I legitimately directed that thing, like storyboarded it, wrote it out, like what is every scene going to look like, where are we going to shoot, like stuff like that, man. Like there's just kind of, it doesn't even feel like work. So I feel like that's definitely kind of a big passion.
I think there's something special about creating. There's the business aspect of creating businesses is one thing, but truly creating projects or creating art that you take from concept to execution, when that execution actually happens, the final product, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. It's not money can't replace that feeling.
You guys are gonna make me have to try this. I like creating art, but I've never I have no passion for the amount of time the process takes to make good art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've never gone down that path. But after what V just said, I feel like I should actually give it a shot and see what happens.
Give it a shot. Yeah.
Man, you created a patentable sock. I think you're pretty creative.
No,
right?
Dude,
It's
still, I know. I don't feel, okay, products are fine, but I don't feel like, I know, I wish I felt like that for film. You know what I mean? It's so cool to be like that for film, Swish.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Partha, like I feel like if you were even directing a marketing video for Lasso, you'd be very
I
invested in
do
it.
not do
No,
that. No, that's
you
not
don't
what
want to
I'm
do
good
that.
at.
No, fair enough, fair
Not
enough,
not
fair
at
enough.
all.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, yeah,
if you let me do, like, I have certain things that I'm like, I know exactly like what I'm going for, right? Outcome
right.
wise.
Yeah,
But like for me, it's so much more about like what I'm good at is like I know who the great director is
yep,
who can create it to look how I want it to look, right? And then
fair
I
enough.
know like the product person that can like make the thing like come out how
Yep,
so like
yep,
I'm more better at getting those people who have the skill to like create the
yep,
thing
yep,
than
yep.
I am at creating it myself. I've just never been a very hands-on guy.
Well,
Mm,
I think the thing that I like the most in with you, Partha, is you're very self-aware,
mm-hmm,
in the
mm-hmm.
sense that you know where your skills lie
Of my tremendous shortcomings. I am very,
Yeah,
and
very aware. Yeah.
where you need help. And I
I've
think
yeah,
lived this life. Yeah.
and
yeah.
that's probably the reason why you've advanced at the rate that you have, because I think
Hmm.
a lot of people
Yep.
early on in their entrepreneurial careers, and still I still suffer from this, and you and I have this conversation all the time where it's like I don't know how to defer to other people, you know.
Mm,
I
mm,
I try to do everything myself, and I think that that's a important skill that both of you guys have with having employees and
hmm.
managing people is it's
Would
important.
would you delegate your social media stuff? Do you do that? Your personal stuff?
Yeah. Oh, no,
Yeah.
not my personal. So on the personal side, like other than content creation, if I need like a graphic made or a meme made or like a video edited, like I'll definitely outsource that. But posting wise, like commenting back and kind of, going and actually making captions, I do that on my own.
So
And then yeah,
that's
true
really
fan side though,
interesting about your personality. We're
yeah.
polar opposites in that manner. Like
Yeah. Right.
I would like rather take on, technical work or some sort of
Mm,
computer work
yeah.
than actually have to interact, which is
I
interesting.
I like words, right? Like kind of going
Mhm.
back to even the speech writing internship back in first year. Like I just like words and I like being able to bring meaning to words. So like if I'm able to kind of evoke an emotion among people, which is what I try to do with every post, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram, I like to get you to feel something. Um, my hope is that I'm able to do that through my word choice, and
Do
I
you
don't like other people writing my words for me.
have you done a book? Are you gonna do a book?
I have done a book,
Yeah.
and it was supposed to come out this year. It's called A Young Entrepreneur. Kogan Page was publishing it out of the UK. I actually wrote the book with my friend Quinn,
Nice.
and we had a good kind of 2 year period of writing it, and then obviously COVID hit. So we'll hopefully get it out next year. The whole thing's done. There's actually a pre-order link on Amazon that you can find. Don't pre-order it right now. Just
What's it
wait off. But
about?
yeah, it's about how to start a business while you're in school, and then I also talk a little bit about like what entrepreneurship truly means, like what sorts of personality traits you want to look for. What does the lifestyle actually look like? I talk a little bit about networking as well, the importance of building a personal brand. So it's not just talking about business and going through like the A to Z's of business. It's going through more of like, if you're a student 18 to 24, here's what you need to know about the entrepreneurial path. Like a lot of people don't know, you start a business, you need to be thinking that you're going to be locked into it for the next 10, 15, 20 years, like minimum. So just make sure that like if you pick a project and you're putting your eggs into it, you know that you're locked in and this is the obsession that you have over a problem that you cannot wait until it gets solved.
And I think that provides a good segue. I don't want you to give away everything here, but I think
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of young people out here, young creatives. We were just talking about creatives
Mm-hmm.
who are brilliant, whether they're musicians, whether they're athletes, whether they're movie producers, but they don't know how to build an audience and how to grow a following. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have like superficially, obviously,
Yeah.
some tips for people out here who are in that space trying to build a brand and a following on these social networks
Mm-hmm.
to start?
Yeah, I think three things. One is pick one platform. Don't try to be everywhere initially. Pick a platform that suits your personality, your strengths the best. For me, it was LinkedIn again because words, right? Like, words are my thing. So I didn't want to go down Instagram because I'm not the best photographer and I don't know if I had like a repertoire of great photos of myself that I could share with motivational quotes because I didn't feel like I had really done much. So I chose LinkedIn, started writing articles, interviewing people because words were my thing. So that's number one is pick a platform that plays to your strength. Number two is really focus on the content that you're putting out. Like make sure that whether it's, you're putting out discussion questions, informative content, inspirational content, personal anecdotes, things that have happened in your life, that you're very deliberate about making sure that in the early days, you're not only sharing content, but you're sharing it consistently. Like people don't want to follow people that are like surfacing every 4 or 5 fucking months. Like they want to follow people that are going to be there every week, sharing like a dose of energy, dose of advice, dose of knowledge into their life that they can continuously follow. And then the third and final thing is if you want to grow a community, be part of the community. So whatever niche you're trying to be a part of, whether it's fitness or yoga or vegan food, whatever it is, find the people that are moving the conversation in that category, whether it's in your city, country, wherever you are, and be a part of their conversations, be a part of their comment feeds, reply to the people that are commenting to their posts, get on the 5-minute phone calls with people that are engaged in that category so they start cross-pollinating and coming to your content as well.
That's a really, really great point. That's something I learned recently about, just like, I think it was through Stadia when we met all these people, right?
Yeah.
Just the power of being a part of the community of the industry you're trying to impact.
Yeah. That's sage advice. I know, definitely appreciate all of your time here. So let's get to some fun stuff here, because you get to interact with a lot of these industries in real life. So let's dig deeper a little bit and talk about not just your influences and inspirations, but who's had the most impact on you. You mentioned Kobe already. So the first thing would be your top 5 athletes.
Top 5 athletes of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah, number 1 I think would have to be Kobe. And maybe not just because of skill, but just like generally the impact that he had on my life. Like I actually spoke at his, this is such a sad story given the fact that he's gone, but like, 3 years ago or something, like I was speaking at a school called Sage Hill in California, and his daughter Natalia went there, and she was in the audience. I didn't actually like go and find her, like I wasn't that creepy or anything, but like I knew she was in the audience. I was told by the principal that Kobe's daughter goes here, and I'm like, oh fuck. And then after the talk, I got a couple of kids come up to me and they were like, oh, by the way, like I know you're a big basketball fan because your name's Swish, like whose daughter goes here? And I'm like, oh yeah, Kobe. And they're like, honestly, you should go to the Starbucks at Newport Beach and just chill there because he normally comes by around like 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. So I literally the next day went to that Starbucks and waited for 3 hours from like 7:30 to 10:30, just waited. Didn't show up, obviously, but I really wish that I could have met him before, obviously, he passed away, which was really sad. The second, I think, would be LeBron James. I think LeBron James is just unbelievable. I don't get the hate that he gets. I don't know why, but I think the fact is, like, a lot of people in the early days of Colin Kaepernick could have turned their backs and been like, I have a Nike contract. I don't know if I should risk it for social justice, but LeBron James has gone out of every single like way to make sure that he puts out his worldview properly. And like, he makes people know, like, sometimes he's a bit wrong, right? Like his kind of how he dealt with China, I think was a bit wrong, but the fact is he's an outspoken athlete, and that's admirable because I think we should have outspoken athletes.
That is the reason why a lot of people dislike him, is because he genuinely lives life by his own set of rules and is creating rules as he goes. And I think that rubs a lot of people who are insecure.
Right. Yeah.
The wrong.
Yep. So and then number 3, Lewis Hamilton. Similar reasons, but another person actually I would love to meet. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton. Just I've become a big Formula One fan over the last year. I don't know how that even happened.
Let me know about that one.
You about what?
I know a few people on his team.
Do you? Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, we got to follow up because I am obsessed, man. Like I've been trying to get to him through. I know a musician. His name's Pro. He's a DJ, but he knows Lewis well.
Business manager. Yeah.
We got to make that happen. Jesus Christ, I'm a huge fan. But and then number 4 and 5, I think are kind of up in the air. But I think Serena Williams is definitely there. Also because my mom is so obsessed with Serena Williams.
Dude,
and like
she is so impressive.
So impressive. Like pregnant while playing. It's like, how did that even happen?
Meme of Dwayne Wade's new hairstyle.
No.
This is hilarious. So he's all blonde.
Yeah.
And then they put Serena winding back a forehand, and they put Dwayne Wade standing in front of it.
She's amazing. I've gotten to meet her a couple of times.
Oh. How is she?
She's really down to earth and really cool.
That's
I actually know her and her sister's agent, He's
Right.
IMG agent out of Cleveland.
That's dope.
Amazing. Yep.
Yeah,
And
so
then
hit me on that.
And yeah, number 5. I can't think of number 5 really. I don't know. Sorry, yeah, number 5. I was saying it was up in the air. Roger Federer. Roger Federer. That's why I was kind of up in the air. It's like, who's the goat of tennis?
He's on my list too.
Yeah, Roger Federer is
He's
so
dope. He's
so
dope.
iconic, so humble, such a great athlete overall.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about on the music side? And you can keep it in hip hop, or you can take it to all of music if you want to.
Yeah, I'll do all of music. So number 1 for me would definitely be Travis Scott. I'm a big Travis Scott fan. Ever since Rodeo came out, I've been a huge fan. Gone to every concert that I possibly could have gone to.
Is it something with your generation that he connects with that you think is deeper than anything else?
I think it's just like, candidly, I think it's just like the kind of like raging mentality, along with just like being super energetic and not really caring about what other people think. Like,
Is it
I
like
think,
metal?
yeah,
Is it like the new metal or punk?
yeah, definitely the beats are awesome. Like, its music is just like, you can get really hyped up with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just like his flow is really cool. The auto tune just is like so perfect. Like, people can butcher auto tune. Like, that's the thing. People are like, oh, he's auto tuned. It's so easy. It's like, no. To get that, like, that level of precision with like good auto tune, like the last time I heard that was like fucking T-Pain back in the day. Like, it is hard to get that level of auto tune right, and especially doing that also across live performances, where I think he's easily the best live performer of all time because he's so energetic. He leaves a good show no matter where you're at.
Time.
Right? Yeah,
You know,
100%.
it's so
Best live
interesting
performer of all time.
talking to
Best
you
live performer
because
of all time.
everything you're using to describe Travis Scott, I would have used when I was, high school age to describe Avenged Sevenfold, which is like what I grew up on Linkin Park,
Right,
described Avenged Sevenfold. So it was like the same energy, but expressed differently, right?
So maybe
And
it's like our generation.
that's what I'm
He is
wondering.
he is your generation's leader.
Yeah.
Totally. I think past that, like, a little controversial, I guess. I mean, Michael Jackson, I would, obviously it's hard to qualify just because, like, I was a big Michael Jackson fan growing up, and then obviously all the scandals and everything came out, and it's hard to be a public Michael Jackson fan. But obviously, like, he inspired me to go into dance.
The art, yeah.
He inspired me to go into dance. I'm very honest about that.
That's dope.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about the Michael Jackson situation? I feel like you can support the art, and also in America we have this thing, innocent until proven guilty, that I think he hasn't gotten. He was never convicted of any of this stuff, and it seemed like there are issues with some of the people who have accused him, right? Because there is a school of thought, and I've experienced this with friends, that you can be a target. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I do think that we do have to give him some quarter. It's not like R. Kelly where the evidence is right in front of you.
You've seen that happen with people you know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, I mean, that happens 100%. I agree. I don't know what the facts are, but to be fair, just from an art perspective, dance, music, love it. And then I think kind of the last 3, Justin Bieber is there for sure. His music's amazing, and I also just I generally just vibe with him as a character.
Canada roots too.
And then The Weeknd and Drake.
Yeah, all Canadians.
Canadian trio kind of makes up the third and fifth, but yeah, the Drake and Weeknd, obviously. Like, how can you not like Drake? He's
It's
probably one of the best artists
It's
of all time.
impossible to not like Drake.
And we got to ask you this last one is because you keep talking about reading. You talked about it multiple times. Do you have a top 5 book list?
I don't know if I have a top 5. I have like just general books that I like reading. I don't know if I can rank them compared to each other.
Read multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, so like even like from an early age, like I read a book called Inkheart. Inkheart was a very, very good book. Just a fiction book, but like at the same time, like very creative book, beautifully written. Frankenstein. I think if you're in grade 11 or 12 and you have like an exam about an essay writing about any theme, any topic, Frankenstein is your book. That book is the greatest book for literary analysis because it has every theme. It has betrayal, it has love, it has confusion, loyalty, whatever it is, like it has everything in it. And then I think in terms of business, Measure What Matters is a really good book about kind of OKRs and goals. So like objectives and key results and goals. Zero to One by Peter Thiel, obviously, is just a great book about learning how to be a contrarian and thinking of like, oh my God, like the basic principles that you're always told might not actually be true. Like being the first mover in a space maybe is not actually the best. Maybe being the last mover in the space is best. And like being able to read some of those principles, you might not agree with everything, but it's still a pretty good and interesting read. And then the third book, it's actually literally like behind me right now, but it's called The Airbnb Story, recently came out. And I love the Airbnb story. I love, like watching keynotes from Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, because it's so cool to hear that they launched like 4 times. They got no traction. Paul Graham from YC said they were like the worst idea that he's ever heard, but still kind of believed in them and backed them. And then they went through all these legal issues, but they persevered and have built a really big company that somehow has also done really well throughout COVID. Like they focused on interstate travel, and that's really helped them. And yeah, just a very, very admirable company overall.
It's awesome, man. You're a fascinating guy. We've talked here for an hour and 24 minutes, 25 minutes, and I feel like we could continue talking for 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
But just genuinely root for you, man. Excited for everything that you have going on. I know you're going to make a huge impact. You've already made a huge impact on the world, and you will continue to do so. And we love to continue to have you on. As your journey continues, we want to have you back on here, man. And just keep grinding and keep chasing your dreams.
Appreciate that. No, thank you for having me. This is awesome. This is definitely different than any other podcast I've done. You guys were right about that.
There's no sequence. There's no flow.
Yeah, I love it.
The whole goal, when we started this, the whole goal was like, because I joined year 2 of this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so V and I were talking. I was just like, they had already been pretty unique with the interview style. And Mecca, the old host, I was filling his spot, and I was like, what can I bring to this? And it's like, I'll bring my like complete sense of disarming questions that are so off base that like you can't have a script to go through this podcast. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It like forces you to get normal. So I like to ask like really random questions during this, just to like, because you do a lot of interviews, Swish, and I know you come in prepared, and I like
got my scripted answers. Yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah, this was great. No, honestly, from the very beginning, like I think 90% of the interview I've never even talked about publicly before. So very, very excited to have people hear this. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being vulnerable too. I mean, the story, your upbringing, we didn't go super deep into that, obviously, but like just hearing where you came from and learning about how you actually like look at the world and how kind and giving you are to your LinkedIn community and everything beyond, right? It's cool to be friends with somebody with your energy, man, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Yep,
thank you.
Definitely, man. Take care. Good luck. We'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.